Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to an emergency podcast. That's right, the Buccaneers have hired offensive coordinator Zac Robinson after an exhaustive search that included many candidates that the team interviewed, some of them multiple times, including Robinson, who got his second interview yesterday. And the Buccaneers were so sold on him, they decided to cancel their second interview with Brian Callahan today. I think that's some good news. I'm Scott Reynolds, by the way, from Pewter Report, and joined with me today is Bailey Adams. And as you know, the Pewter Report podcast is presented by our friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on for auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance. Give Briar Greaves your business, and you'll be satisfied with the coverage and the service that you get. Visit them on the web at briargreavesinsurance.com or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. And let's bring in Bailey Adams here from Pewter Report to break down this hire. This is not really too much of a surprise, Bailey. We talked about this the last couple of podcasts. Once they decided to bring in Dan Pitcher for an interview, you got to thinking that Todd Monken's going to take a job elsewhere, and so is Mike McDaniels. And then when that happened, I think Zac Robinson became the obvious candidate because of his play calling experience, his familiarity with Baker Mayfield, who gave him the seal of approval, according to reports. And I think this is the best available hire for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not unhappy with this whatsoever. I think out of what was available, this was clearly the best available choice.
I absolutely agree. I think first blush, the ideal candidate, I think, was Mike McDaniel. I think Todd Monken was up there too. And we talked about that for the better part of the last week, 2 weeks. But like you said, like the situation the Bucs are in and Todd Bowles is in specifically, they needed experience. I don't think there was obviously the target was going to be an experienced play caller.
That's right.
As much as I like Dan Pitcher, and I think he might have been an interesting pick, I think that once it came down to Zac Robinson, Dan Pitcher, it was going to be Zac Robinson. And I think even to an extent, like you mentioned, Mike McDaniel interviewed on Friday. Mm-hmm. And then there was a pretty, it was a little bit of a quiet spell there from Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday. And I think they were still waiting around, obviously. And then once, like you said, once they brought in Pitcher, I believe it was Monday afternoon, that's when you kind of started to think, all right, they might be needing to make preparations on, what happens if they don't get McDaniel. Monken never really felt like it almost felt like a third option for him. So with what was available, I think Robinson might have his faults, but I think with what was available, this is what, what they needed to do.
Yeah. And as D. Castillo says, this is the best option this season. And I think that's right. You have to look at this like the NFL draft. And, I'm not trying to sell you on Zac Robinson, but I do think this is a solid hire given what was available. If you look at the NFL draft and let's say, you've got your number one target and he's gone by number 15 and you got your number 2 target and he's gone. What are you going to do? You're just going to say, well, let's just screw the draft. No, you're going to pick the next best available option. And you're going to hope that he ends up being better than some of those guys. I mean, think back to Tristan Wirfs. He was the 4th offensive tackle taken in that 2020 draft class. He's the best one. Mm-hmm. Tony Dungy was the 3rd option. They wanted Jimmy Johnson back in 1996. They wanted Steve Spurrier after that, and they settled on Tony Dungy. He ended up being the right guy. So one of the things that I do like about this hire is the fact that I think he's stepping into a much better situation at the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. He's worked with Baker Mayfield before out in LA, just like Liam Cohen did. And if you liked what Liam Cohen was able to do in 2024, I think Zac Robinson is the guy that can come closest to replicating what the Buccaneers were able to do. I think he's going to be a little bit more, perhaps a lot more, Sean McVay adjacent than even Josh Grizzard was. Because remember, Grizzard was only in Tampa with Liam Cohen for 1 year. Before that, he was with the Dolphins. And I think that he had more of a Dolphins mindset in terms of their downfield passing game than what we saw from Liam Cohen for sure. You look at Baker Mayfield's his completion percentage, right? When he was doing so well under Cohen in 2024, 71.4% with shorter, more rhythmic passes. And I think we're going to kind of get back to that a little bit because that's a little bit more Sean McVay-like. Get the ball in the hands of your playmakers, get yards after the catch. That's what we see with Puka Nacua, right? That's what we see with Devontae Adams. And that's what we saw with this Buccaneer offense in 2024. I think when they went to go a little bit more vertical with the passing attack, that's not really where Baker Mayfield thrived. And my hope is that Zac Robinson, coming from that Sean McVay system, whereas Josh Grizzard really didn't, I'm hopeful that we're going to see the best of Baker Mayfield in 2026, if not more closer to 2024 numbers.
Yeah, I think that's what I like the most about it is potentially getting back closer to what we saw under Liam Cohen. Because when you look now, I mean, with some hindsight, but when you look back at the 2025 season, what a lot of the problem was, yeah, the a bit more of the vertical downfield passing attack wasn't really Baker's strong suit, much less when you lose Mike Evans, when you lose, different receivers at different times. So, yeah, I think when you've got guys like Chris Godwin Jr., you got a guy like Tez Johnson, who I'm curious to see how he does if you get him the ball in space, kind of in the shorter passing game.
Yeah.
I think it's well suited to what Baker did well in 2024 under Cohen. And I think, if, longer term, if Baker can return back to what he looked like under Cohen when he's now working with Zac Robinson, he's now set up for potentially a really good platform year to get another big contract because, I know we'll see what happens this offseason, but with the way things went down in 2025, I don't know if you necessarily extend Baker Mayfield yet, but he's being put in a good position with a coach he's familiar with and with a system he's very familiar with as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well said, Bailey. And the other thing too with Zac Robinson, let's look at some of these positives here, right? He's worked with Matt Stafford out in LA, right? He's worked with a big time quarterback, and I thought that he helped Stafford's adjustment to LA exceptionally well. Obviously, they won a Super Bowl out there. Mm-hmm. But the other thing too is you look at the quarterback position, and Baker Mayfield has not missed a start. Now, did he play exceptionally well for the Buccaneers down the stretch when he was a little banged up? No, he wasn't. But let's look at what Zac Robinson had to deal with regards to the quarterback position in LA. Started off with Kirk Cousins, who was signed as a free agent coming off of an Achilles injury in Minnesota. And I think we can all agree, looking at 2024 Kirk Cousins, when he was tied for the lead in interceptions with 16 that season with Baker Mayfield, right? He struggled fitting into what Zac Robinson wanted to do, and I think mobility was an issue. He threw 18 touchdowns and 16 interceptions, but he went 7-7 as a starter. Now, that's not great, right? But they opted for Michael Penix down the stretch, who was the first-round pick. And Penix was 1-2 as a starter that year. Then they started Penix the next year, 2025. He was the first-round pick, right? And they moved on from Kirk Cousins. Cousins was going to be the backup. And Penix only went 3-6 as a starter. Okay, so this is a rookie quarterback. Most rookie quarterbacks come in and struggle, right? It's a tough adjustment. And I think there was some adjustment with Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons offense. Michael Penix went to the Falcons offense. But when you look at Penix and what he was doing at Washington, not being under center, looking at the sideline for cards, right, to see what the play was, not huddling, that was a bigger adjustment than maybe even the Falcons thought. And so he went 3-6 as a starter. Believe it or not, the Falcons got better when Kirk Cousins, 37-year-old Kirk Cousins, got back into the starting lineup. He was 5-3 as a starter down the stretch, including beating the Buccaneers on Thursday night with that epic comeback. So if you give Zac Robinson a better quarterback in Baker Mayfield, because he's better than Michael Penix is. Penix had a torn ACL right now. But Penix, for all of the first-round talent, has won 4 games. He's 4-8 as a starter in Atlanta. And Kirk Cousins was about 500 in his 2 years in Atlanta, he was 12-10 as a starter. And guess what? Outside of playing against the Buccaneers, Bailey, Kirk Cousins is not as good of a quarterback at age 37 as Baker Mayfield is right now. So I'm just hopeful that the two work together for 5 weeks out in LA, and that familiarity certainly helps things out. But I'm curious to see what Zac Robinson is able to do with a better quarterback in Baker Mayfield. I think that's the difference between, possibly winning 9, 10, 11 games rather than what the Falcons had to settle for, which was 2 8 and 9 seasons.
Yeah, and for all of the issues he had at quarterback, obviously the biggest positives and the biggest, I think, performances that he got throughout the last couple seasons from the Atlanta offense were from Bijan Robinson, obviously. He found ways to get him the ball and to get him the production that you would expect from a guy like Bijan Robinson. And then Drake London has really come on as a very, very strong wide receiver one. And I've seen already the quick reaction to this hire has been, well, the Bucs don't have Bijan Robinson. Then, I mean, I know it's Bucky Irving is not Bijan Robinson. I know he's got to bounce back. I wrote about that in the roundtable this week. But the Bucs have weapons, and this is not an offense that is devoid of weapons, much less coming in with a better quarterback situation. So I think that's interesting. And like you mentioned, with what we saw Robinson and Atlanta and Kirk Cousins do against the Bucs, this almost reminds me a little bit of a few years ago when they brought in Cohen and when Todd Bowles for years had struggled against the Rams offensive system, against Sean McVay and against that style of offense. And when they needed to go out and get an offensive coordinator, he went that route, and he went with, hey, this has been beating me. It's been taking care of my defense. Let's kind of bring this in and adopt it. Yeah. And now it's, we've seen the last couple of years what this Atlanta offense has done against the Buccaneer defense. And, that's not a reason enough to hire a guy because this defense has had its faults. But I think there's almost an element of that where it's like, all right, this is working and we're seeing it up front and close, just the way we were with the Rams system. So let's see how, we can kind of adopt that back in more so than we did with Josh Grizzard. Because like you said, Josh Grizzard only in Tampa and only with Liam Cohen for a year, as opposed to all the time he spent in Miami. So I think there's a path where this works. And I think like we said at the top, this is, given the situation, what you would want them to do and what you want them, the kind of hire you want them to make.
He's the best available option.
Yes.
Clearly better than Brian Callahan. Folks, I would be going ape shit if they had hired Brian Callahan. I'm just letting you know right now. Okay. And as Game On says, this hire was more like who wants the job rather than who we want for the job. Yeah, the guys they wanted for the job, we've been crystal clear. Mike McDaniel and Todd Monken, and they said no. And folks, that's what's going to happen when you have an 8-9 head coach who's on the hot seat. Okay? This is not that desirable of a job. Not like it was, say, last year, right? When Liam Cohen moved on, they opted for continuity rather than, and obviously Zac Robinson wasn't available last year, so that wasn't an option. But it made sense that they would want some continuity. This was a hire for a couple of reasons. Number one, Todd Bowles wanted an experienced play caller. And you know what? After seeing Josh Grizzard and Dave Canales struggle in those 2 seasons, that's not a bad idea. Okay, that's not a bad idea. Liam Cohen, out of the 3 guys they had hired over the last 3 years, was the most experienced play caller. He called a couple of games out in LA during that 2022 season when Baker Mayfield was the quarterback. When Sean McVay was like, having a little bit of a breakdown and said, man, here, you call the offense for a couple of games, Liam. And he did. But then he had 2 years worth of play calling experience at Kentucky. And that was way more than Josh Grizzard had, which was 0, and way more than Dave Canales had, which was 0. So this is more akin to Liam Cohen, especially given those LA roots in the offense. And so is this a great hire? I'm not going to say that it is. We'll wait and see. But is it a good hire? I think it is, given who was the out there, who was the best available candidates under that criteria. The other thing, too, is people want Nate Scheelhaas. People want Grant Udinski. I get it. in a different time and place and situation, maybe that happens. But this team, and not just Todd Bowles, Jason Light too, this team cannot afford, okay, with Baker Mayfield in a contract year, to have another rookie play caller come in. And as much as we think Sheil Haas can be a good offensive coordinator, or Grant Udinski, it remains to be seen. It always doesn't work out the way we want it to in life, right? I mean, sometimes the best laid plans just don't materialize. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think I don't mean a good example of that, and it's maybe going to fly in the face of a little bit what we've been talking about, but 2 years ago, Zac Robinson was the hottest name, and you know it's a little bit different because I guess Fieldhouse and Udinski are both still a little bit younger than he was then, but Robinson's 39 now. He's 37 a couple of years ago, and he was looked at as the guy, the candidate to be a coordinator somewhere, and Atlanta went and scooped him up. There's also an element of history here where the Bucs were planning to interview him in 2023, and then he ended up taking the Atlanta job before he even got to the interview in Tampa. So they were obviously interested in him in that cycle. And the other thing is, I'd be interested. We talked about the quarterback situation, and I'd be interested to know like the behind the scenes of what Robinson wanted to happen in Atlanta. Did he want to roll with the veteran and Kirk Cousins, or did he want to go from the jump with Michael Penix? And we might not know that, but the Bucs spent a lot of time with him over the last couple of weeks. They, yesterday's interview, his second interview, the one in person, Greg Auman was reporting last night that it was still going on. So they've talked to him. They have all of the information they need, as far as what went down in Atlanta, what went wrong, and how are we going to fix that?
Yeah.
I think,
and Bailey, you're onto something here, because I don't think any offensive coordinator truly wants to have a quarterback change in a season, right? Either due to injury or due to poor performance. Whoever your starting quarterback is, you want that guy because you've invested all that time in training camp, all that time in the OTAs, all that time in practice with the number one reps. You want that guy to excel and be the guy wire to wire. And that didn't happen in either of the Falcons seasons. And it wasn't like Atlanta, and listen, trust me, I'm not an Atlanta apologist, okay, at all. But we're just looking at the facts here. They had 2 8-9 finishes. This wasn't like a Falcons team that was, 2-15, right? Or 3-14, right? This was not like an absolute crap fest in Atlanta. They just didn't have enough to kind of get over the hump and get into the playoffs. And it cost Raheem Morris his job and Zac Robinson too. But I'm with you. With better quarterback play, is that worth another win or two? It might be. And I think Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback than either 37-year-old Kirk Cousins or injured knee first-round pick Michael Penix, who has won 4 games as a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Even going further into that, I mean, you think we talked, I think, a little bit about it with Raheem Morris and all that, but just, I guess, a month or 2 months into his tenure in Atlanta, like, I'd be curious to know what his thought process was like when, they paid all that money for Kirk Cousins and then turned around and spent that first-round pick on Michael Penix.
Yeah.
Because as much as they needed defensive help at the time, if you're Zac Robinson, you're an offensive coordinator calling plays in Atlanta, you're looking at that like, well, now what do we do? Am I tasked with rolling with the veteran quarterback that we're spending all this money and also developing this first-round quarterback? So it's a lot right off the bat to be put on his plate in Atlanta. And, yeah, I'd just be curious to see how much just from the jump that hindered him.
Yeah, exactly. Appreciate this comment. Was absolutely the best of the bunch that was remaining. And that's what our stance is on this, right? He's the best of what was available for the Buccaneers. More people need to listen to Scott Reynolds. He's been dialed into this team for 30 years. That means I'm old. And I appreciate that, Bam Bam. Thank you.
It's true. Not the old part. I wasn't saying that's true. I was saying the more people need to listen to.
It's okay. I'm getting there. I got arthritis. I'm old. I'm just resigned to the fact that I'm closer to dying than I was to being born. So, Aaron DeBucks says, yes, we heard Scott say he was the most likely option. Doesn't make it a good one. That's fair. That's fair. We'll see. Time will tell. Nobody knew how good or bad Dave Canales was going to be until he did it. We had a pretty good feeling Liam Cohen was going to be upgrade over Dave Canales, and he was. I didn't think he was going to be as good as he was, though, to be honest.
Right.
I didn't think that this offense would be top 5 in scoring and top 5 in the run game in Liam Cohen's first year. I did not expect that. Liam Cohen exceeded not just my expectations, probably yours too, Bailey, but this team's expectations with how good he was out of the gate.
Yeah, I was not expecting a 4,500 yard, 41 touchdown season from Baker Mayfield that year. And then obviously with the run game being top 5, Bucky Irving bursting onto the scene, that was not something that we saw coming. So it all took off a lot quicker than I think anyone expected. But and going back to the experience that Zac Robinson brings in, when they hired Dave Canales, we saw it during training camp that, okay, they're going to have some call-up periods so that he gets some experience calling plays live and getting that experience in the preseason was important for him. Even to the extent the same thing with Cohen and then the same with Grizzard. With the situation they were in, getting a guy who has now called plays for 2 years in the same division, much less, has called play for 2 years. Yes, he's going to have some things to work on, some things to adjust, and some adjusting to the personnel, and he has all offseason for that. But you don't feel like you're going to have that same adjustment period of a first-time play caller trying to figure it out on the fly. Yeah. And again, because of the situation this team is in, with Todd Bowles being on the hot seat, coming off, no playoffs for the first time since 2019, a collapse late in the season with the offense and the defense, but with the offense, that's what they needed, is somebody they could say, okay, adjust to the personnel. You've got the next 5-6 months to do that. Yeah. And then when it comes time for training camp, when it comes time, for week 1, we'll be ready to go. And we're not going to have to worry about, all right, now it's live game action. It really counts. What are we going to get here?
And you know what, Bailey? Listen, we've heard from Todd Bowles that he spent a good deal of time in OTAs and in training camp preparing the offensive coordinator, right? Breaking in the rookie coordinator, the rookie play caller. Todd Bowles needs to be concerned about defense. Yeah. He needs to leave his offensive coordinator alone and focus on fixing this horrible defense. Okay? So if you're looking for a positive Bucs fans, that's it right there. Todd Bowles doesn't have to be head coach here and look over the offensive coordinator's shoulder and prepare Dave Canales for calling plays and Josh Grizzard and get them ready. Meanwhile, you've got Larry Foote calling plays in practice. You've got George Edwards calling plays in practice. No, Todd Bowles, if you're going to be the defensive coordinator again, you call plays in practice every single day. And let your experienced offensive coordinator deal with the offense. You fix the defense, and you let Zac Robinson run the offense because you got what you wanted, which was an experienced guy. So I think that's a healthy byproduct here, where Todd Bowles can spend every waking minute getting this defense from the bottom half of the league or bottom third of the league in some categories up to at least the top half of the league, if not the top 10 in categories other than run defense, because nobody wants to run in the Buccaneers. It's way too easy to pass the ball.
Yeah, and that's where it gets interesting too, because as much as the appeal of this job as an offensive coordinator in Tampa, much of the appeal is autonomy, and Todd Bowles is going to leave you alone and let you run the offense. When you're a first-time play caller, he had to spend time making sure that they were getting up to speed. And I think, now you bring in Zac Robinson, you can give him full autonomy, and you, like you said, you don't have to be looking over his shoulder. You can let him take care of the offense, and you got to focus on fixing what has been a really, really bad defense. Yeah. And so I know there's already going to be some skepticism to that, where people are kind of out on Todd Bowles as a head coach, as a defensive mind and all that. But I still think there is plenty in there of Todd Bowles as a defensive mastermind. And I think the extra time he can now spend with his defense, I think that's got to have some value to it.
Yeah. Listen, I know there's plenty of you out there. We're going to get some super chats in a second. They're lined up, but just a couple more comments because I want to be fair and give everybody, not everybody can't do that, but a lot of y'all a turn here. AJ Garcia says, I'm sorry, but I can't get behind this. We are in by far the weakest division in the NFL, and yet we couldn't grab anyone from outside this terrible division. Holy crap, they're honestly just leaning into this crap because they're just playing to win the damn division so we can hope in the playoffs and the wild card and hope we can make enough plays to survive. This is not a sustainable approach. You know what? That's fair. That's fair, but here's the thing. Who else was better, right? Who else would you get that was an experienced play caller that would help? And I don't know who that person is. But what I will say is when you look at this hire, best available option, checks a lot of boxes, the familiarity with Baker Mayfield, the familiarity with this offense. I think it's going to be a little closer to what we saw from Liam Cohen because of the roots in LA, that the time that he has spent out there. Time will tell, though. Time will tell. As King Cook says, they're trying to sell us on this being such a great hire. No, we're not. I said this is the best available hire. We'll see how it pans out. And he follows up and says, why does everyone keep with this Liam narrative? Everybody who thinks that every offensive corner is going to have Baker playing like he did that one season. He might. I think he's got a better chance than Josh Grizzard does, right? And Baker is in a contract year this year. Baker had a lot to do with this hire. He gave it his seal of approval. And we're going to bring in Matt Matera here for some more analysis here. Oops. Let me get Matt. There we go. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Good. I step out for 1 second. The Bucs hire an offensive coordinator. But, big news this morning with Tampa Bay. A lot of what we talked about on yesterday afternoon's Pewter Report podcast in terms of this is the safest bet for Tampa Bay going with Zac Robinson. Was it their first or second option? No, but it doesn't mean that the season is just going to be doomed because it's not Mike McDaniel and it's not Todd Monken. A lot of this, too, makes me think about Baker Mayfield probably signed off on this, the fact that he was his quarterback's coach with the LA Rams. I'm sure they're talking to Baker the whole time. The Bucs, that is, saying, hey, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? Now, obviously, Baker doesn't know every single person. Dan Pitcher, not sure about his relationship with. But if Baker, who is obviously already riled up based on all of his tweets about Kevin Stefanski, if he's on board with it, I think that's all that really matters. I mean, we heard what Baker Mayfield had to say about Liam Cohen before Liam Cohen came to Tampa Bay. I remember people spoke to him at the Pro Bowl was when all that news was announced. If he had that to say about Liam Cohen, I can only imagine the feeling is probably somewhat similar to Zac Robinson as well. So I think this is a good hire by the Bucs. Yeah. I can't sit here and say it's a slam dunk, home run type of thing, but it's certainly, I think it's fine for what it is. For who is available, I think it's okay. And it checks the big box that Todd Bowles was looking for, that many people have been looking for. An experienced guy that gets another crack at being an offensive coordinator with hopefully a more competent quarterback in Zac Robinson's case, and to the benefit of the Bucs.
Yeah. And guys, the other thing too is Todd Bowles wants to run the ball. And if you have a guy like Bucky Irving who is healthy, right, and ready to go, you're going to get a 1,000-yard running back if he's healthy for an entire season. And you're going to get a playmaker. You're going to get a balanced offense. And let's face it, I think Baker Mayfield is better when he has a running game to lean on and he can lean into play action. If he has to, for 17 weeks, sling the ball like all over the field, that's not the best version of Baker Mayfield. That's where he presses, you get the interceptions, and I just feel like Baker is a better quarterback when he has a running game to work with and lean on. And guys, Dan Pitcher in Cincinnati and Brian Callahan, who had roots in Cincinnati and then with Tennessee, they just didn't run the ball in Cincy. Like bottom 5 in running, like we're talking like 92, 93 yards a season. That is not really at all what Todd Bowles wanted to do. And so again, we're not saying that this should be a run-first team like it was in Atlanta, but I just think Baker Mayfield is a better passer than either Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix. And so I think if you're Zac Robinson, you've got an upgrade on quarterback now. You've got something better to work with. Oh, by the way, the receiving core is better. You have Drake London and who else? Kadero Hodge. Darnell Mooney. I mean, no offense to those guys, but I mean, if you're asking me which wide receiving core I want, on my team, it's Chris Godwin getting healthier. It's hopefully Mike Evans back for another season. It's Emeka Egbuka. It's Tez Johnson. That's the receiving core that I would rather dive into rather than what Atlanta has. So I think if I'm Zac Robinson, I'm looking at this better quarterback to work with, better receivers to work with, tight ends, no, that not as good as Kyle Pitts, and whoever else they have in Atlanta. The running back room, it's not as good as Bijan Robinson. I mean, Bijan's a top 10 talent in terms of probably top 5 running back talent for sure, right? But maybe you get Tyler Algier in Tampa. right? Because they're probably going to lose Tyler Algier in Atlanta. So you get Tyler Algier to replace Rachaad White. You work a deal with Sean Tucker to have him come back, maybe not for the restricted free agent money, but maybe just on a 2-year deal or something like that for less. Now, all of a sudden, Bucky Irving, Tyler Algier, and Sean Tucker, sign me up for that running back room.
Yeah, and I think we talked about not only is Baker Mayfield a better quarterback than the two he's working with in Atlanta, but I think one of the big criticisms of his offense with the Falcons was not enough play action.
Yeah.
I think that was partly just because those quarterbacks couldn't really move the way they need to move on a play action type of system, and Baker Mayfield can do that. So
Michael Penix was not under center at Washington.
Right.
He was an exclusive shotgun quarterback. To be able to run play action, unless you're running it out of pistol, you've got to be under center, right? So, I think Zach Taylor was, and you're right with Kirk Cousins and the Achilles. He was working with what he had to work with in Atlanta, and I think it's going to look different. It should look different than what the Falcons were able to do, but stick with what worked with the run game because damn, Atlanta could run the hell out of the ball.
Yeah, and clearly, like they spoke with him, and they liked the answers they got from him on what happened there, and that's the thing that I think I want to stress is like they talked to him about what went on, in Atlanta over the last 2 years, and I don't think it was one of those things like because they were going to bring in Callahan for another interview, and they could have extended this search, but clearly they were satisfied with what they heard from Zac Robinson And yeah, and I don't think at any point during this podcast we've said it's a great hire. I think Scott even said, "Is it a great hire? We'll see." It's a good hire given the situation, and I think that's kind of a wait and see thing. Given who was available, given what they needed, this was going to end up being the guy because the experience, the ability to run the ball. Because that was one of the things I loved about Mike McDaniel as a candidate, and Todd Bowles. I think I had put a quote out there a couple weeks ago about how much praise Todd Bowles had for the ability that McDaniel had to design a run game. But that's what he's looking for, and Zac Robinson's going to fit that bill. So
yeah,
that's the thing is it could work out, and if it doesn't, they took the safer route in this situation, and I don't think you can really blame them for the for experience rather than let's go with a first time play caller and hope it works.
Yeah.
Matt, here's a couple things to consider too, right? Like this move keeps Kevin Carberry in Tampa as the run game coordinator and the offensive line coach because Carberry came from LA. He worked with Zac Robinson out there. I think that's something that both Todd Bowles and Jason Light are very happy about, right? And also Baker Mayfield, right? Baker Mayfield likes the running game in Tampa. It's worked pretty well since Carberry's been here. Certainly better than it did under Canales. So there's that. Skip Pete also worked out in LA for a season with Zac Robinson, Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker. The team really likes Skip Pete. I think this is probably a good indication that Skip Pete's going to stick around, right? Then you take a step further. There have been reports that TJ Yates will come over from the Falcons to be the pass game coordinator, which was Josh Grizzard's role under Liam Cohen, right? So you're getting some continuity there with Zac Robinson and TJ Yates having worked together. I think that can be a good thing. And then Ken Zampese, who was Baker Mayfield's quarterbacks coach back in Cleveland, he is a senior offensive assistant, and he might be replacing Kwefense Henson as that senior offensive coordinator. So this is someone that Baker Mayfield's worked with in Cleveland already, some familiarity there. And Zampese obviously was working with Zac Robinson last year in Atlanta. So I think overall there are some strong connections here that again, you're not hitting a reset button like you would if Mike McDaniel was coming. Okay?
Right. It's not like
Todd Monken was coming.
It's not like you're completely wiping the slate clean was good. And if you want to talk about team camaraderie, I cannot wait for the Bucs offense to have T-shirts that say "The Yates of Hell" with TJ Yates coming in there. That was his nickname in the NFL as a backup quarterback. The Bucs are all about team chemistry and camaraderie, as we know. That shirt is definitely coming. I don't want to guarantee it, but I put a lot of money on that coming. But yeah, I think that's always been important for Baker Mayfield. We talk all the time about, he's had so many different offensive coordinators. And on the one hand, we also say, well, he's been through it before. He can do it again. But Baker is at his best when he's got comfortability around him and kind of just like assuring and understanding as well. And you get that with some of the new additions. You get that with his history, with Zac Robinson as well. And then what you were talking about before with the talent on this team, like comparing it to the Falcons as well. You could say Bijan Robinson's the most talented player if you're choosing between the Bucs and the Falcons, but answer 2, 3, 4, and 5 is Tampa Bay, no matter how you look at it. I mean, Drake London can slip in there one way or another, but Robinson's going to now have all of this talent that he didn't have with Atlanta, and what he's able to do there and how he's able to get Baker Mayfield in rhythm and move him out in the pocket. These are all things to what Bailey was talking about too, that you just couldn't do with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. So this is mutually beneficial in terms of getting the most out of Baker Mayfield, but Baker certainly putting Zac Robinson in a new element and a higher level as well, based on his skill set. Ultimately, as we talked about, it's going to come down to the quarterback, and well, we'll find out if the parent can kind of recreate the magic it did with the Rams a couple of years ago.
Well, it's not just the skill talent too. It's the Bucs offensive line, and when this group is fully healthy, it's one of the best in the NFL. So I think that is a big element of it too, and a big element of why this could work.
Yeah, and I think outside of Chris Lindstrom, this is a better offensive line for Zac Robinson too. We didn't mention that, but I mean, this is a better offensive line when healthy. This is a better quarterback situation. This is a better wide receiving room than what he had to work with in Atlanta, and Atlanta is expected to lose Tyler Algier in free agency, from what I've heard. I think this increases the chances that maybe he replaces Rachaad White. And I see a couple people in the chat saying, keep Rachaad White. Rachaad White is done with
that.
Tampa.
Ain't happening.
So just don't comment anymore about Rachaad White. I mean, you can want him to come back, but you're wasting your keystrokes because he's done. He is out. We have some super chats to get to, and let's get to these real quick here. Meets McGee, $5 super chat. I love this move. Well, I don't love it. I like it. I think it's the best available, but you're welcome to like it, Meets McGee. His familiarity with the entire South is key. Let's see what he can do with the more consistent quarterback and at all better receiver room. Matt, this is something you and I have talked about a couple times on the podcast this week already, is the fact that, there's not much of a learning curve here for Zac Robinson. He's played against the Saints 4 times. He's played against the Panthers 4 times. Oh, yeah. He knows Jeff Ulbrich and that Falcons defense intimately, practicing against them every day, and certainly training camp when you have the ones versus the ones. And maybe he can give Todd Bowles some pointers because he's beaten him 3 times to 1. Like, hey, don't run this coverage because this is what gives up touchdowns or something.
That was the last point I want to make too, was like, we've seen in flashes how good Atlanta's offense can look. I mean, that creamsicle game, what they were able to do to mount that comeback in the fourth quarter and some of the throws Kirk Cousins made. Now, was it part of Tampa Bay's defense being an issue? Yeah, absolutely. But you could just see like how full throttle that unit could have been if they were able to do that more consistently, whether, it was Kirk Cousins actually avoiding a blitz or Kyle Pitts actually picking his game up besides anyone else besides playing against the Bucs. Yeah. So now if Robinson can tap into that, the good of what he did with Atlanta when it was working, and just kind of broaden that more with Tampa Bay, which he should be able to consistently do. Right. That's big time as well.
Yep, for sure. Let's get to Kings are awful, $4.99 super chat. Well, he is certainly a hire. He was awful at play action and was obsessed with pistol formation. It's a meh hire, which goes well with their meh head coach. Again, I think sometimes as a coach, as a coordinator, you have to be adaptable. And maybe Zac Robinson was trying to be adaptable to what he had to work with, which was Kirk Cousins on a bum wheel, right? Where maybe he had a hard time going under center, dropping back, doing play action. Whereas in pistol, he was already back there, or he was in shotgun, he was already back there, didn't have to drop back on that surgically repaired Achilles. And again, Michael Penix operated at a shotgun almost exclusively at Washington. So I think this is an instance, and we'll see. Time will tell. But my guess is Zac Robinson was playing to what his quarterbacks were doing best rather than necessarily what he wanted to do.
Mhm.
I think Baker does operate very well under center. I think he does operate well under shotgun, but he has the ability to get under center, and I think run play action better because of it, gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it that this can be an upgrade for this team, and tapping into like the benefit of Bucky Irving and what that can mean for him too. I think is super important. Is he Bijan Robinson? No, but the biggest thing that he was able to find is, okay, if I give my best player the football, eventually he will figure it out. And I think that's what he can do with Bucky Irving to a degree. Now, we'll see who else is on this team, because we've kind of seen how important rotations are at running back, and specifically for the Bucs. But it wasn't like Tyler Algier was just on the sidelines the entire time. He actually got a lot of touches in his time as running back with the Falcons too. So how he kind of manages the running back touches will be important, because that was a big storyline last year. But I think he'll be able to find things for Bucky that then can also open up the play action and get everybody else involved.
Yep. Kings are off with another $1.99 super chat. Robinson and Bulls equals boring football. We'll see.
But will it equate to winning football?
Yeah.
That's ultimately what's most important. And Todd Bowles' defense needs to step up too.
Yeah.
Like, sure, everybody wants the Liam Cohen offense, but if the Liam Cohen offense isn't winning games, then it's a little bit of a moot point.
Yeah. Mr. King, 0-3. Pistol rate over under 90%. Again, I'm willing to give this situation with Zac Robinson the benefit of the doubt. I think pistol was almost more of a necessity in Atlanta, as more of a need than a want. And we'll see. Time will tell. If we see Baker Mayfield and pistol all the time, then that's just what the style of offense Zac Robinson wants to play. My guess is that's not going to be the case here in Tampa. I think
agree.
that he is going to adapt to what Baker Mayfield does better. And I think Baker Mayfield plays better under center, or at least just as good as he does in shotgun. So he's going to have more of those opportunities here. So I wouldn't necessarily hold that against him.
Yeah, and I think too, Baker will have the option to say, hey, I'm more comfortable, if it's the case, I'm more comfortable under center. Or, hey, even if I'm not more comfortable, just we need to be under center more. Like, he's going to have some input on that. That's too.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think in Atlanta, it was you weren't going to get that from, not that they couldn't have input, but you weren't going to hear them say, hey, we should go under center more often, because they were more comfortable in shotgun or pistol.
I think that's the case. Trey Alderson, Cloutier, says Kurt Warner tweeted last year that the Falcons' offense is extremely predictable and painful to watch. This is going to be a long year. Again, when did that happen? And I'm not trying to be a Zac Robinson apologist. I just want some context here. Was that when Drake London was out? Was that when Michael Penix was going 3-6 as a starter? You know, when was that tweet? The Falcons certainly underwhelmed in some games offensively. Guess what? The Bucs did too, right? That's just part of it. There's a reason why Josh Grizzard was fired. There's a reason why Zac Robinson was fired. You know, and ultimately Raheem Morris. It didn't work out, but that's not to say it can't work out here. If you agree that the Buccaneers from tackle to tackle have a better offensive line than Atlanta, which I believe they do. If you believe that the Buccaneers from wide receiver 1 to 5 on the depth chart have a better wide receiver room. Oh, I forgot to include Jalen McMillan. He's pretty good too, right? So, like I do, then that's an upgrade. If you think Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback than 37-year-old Kirk Cousins, or torn ACL second-year quarterback with 4 career wins and Michael Penix, like I do, then Zac Robinson has more to work with here in Tampa than he ever did in those 2 years in Atlanta. Let's see what he does with it.
It does feel, and I think it's probably the temperature of the fan base in general right now is outside of maybe Mike McDaniel. I think it was going to be, who cares who they hired?
Right.
You know, we're doomed.
Right.
The season's over.
Yep. So who cares? They stink fireballs.
Yeah.
So I think there's an element of that I don't know who all was going to be happy regardless of who they hired. So that's what I think is the important thing right now, is like, now they have their coordinator in place, and now it's about, you know, we're going to the Senior Bowl next week. It's about building the roster around, you know, what this coaching staff is going to be able to do with them, and getting them back to a competitive place. You know, not where they were down the stretch last year. They've got some holes to fill. That's where we are in the offseason now, is that, yeah, they've got some offensive coaching staff hires to make. Bowles still has to hire a new defensive line coach.
Yeah.
Still has to hire the defensive backs coach. But yeah, I think that like now you're seeing it come into clear focus what their vision is to get things back on track. And an experienced play caller, a guy that has experience with Baker Mayfield, that is something that they're going to lean on in hopes of getting back on track.
Yeah, exactly. We want to thank A. Fisher 94 for becoming a new Pewter Report TV channel member. Greatly appreciate that. We've seen a huge spike in our channel membership increases over the past month or two, really. If you want to show your support for Pewter Report, become a Pewter Report TV YouTube channel member. We've got lots of perks, including loyalty badges, custom emojis, early access to videos if you're a Pewter Pro member. But if you're a Pewter Premier or Pewter Platinum member, you get access to that exclusive Pewter Insider podcast that Matt Matera and I do each Friday, all throughout the offseason at 1:30. So if you like the Pewter Report podcast, this is not a B-side or just a filler podcast. Sometimes we have some of our best content on those Friday episodes. So it's kind of a must-watch if you're a big Bucs fan. And all of the revenue we get, Bailey Adams was correct. We're heading to Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl, and you help fund our travel with our YouTube revenue. So think about it like you're investing in your own Bucs fandom because you're paying us to go on location to get the inside scoop and analysis that you want on location. And we're going to do that. And we're going to bring that right back to you in forms of on-location podcasts. We'll be in Mobile, Alabama all next week, as well as stories on PewterReport.com. So please, if you can, find the membership level that suits you the best and hit the join button on the front page of Pewter Report TV or YouTube channel. You can also hit the subscribe button. We're on the way to 23,000 subscribers thanks to you. Subscribing is free and easy. Also hit notifications whenever we go live with an emergency podcast where we post a new video of any kind, a Pewter Picks and Prop video that Matt Matera does, a Pewter Pulse video, a top 10 takeaways video that Adam Slaban does. You're going to be notified when those videos go live on Pewter Report TV. So let's continue on with some of these super chats. Greatly appreciate everybody tuning in today. Matt, go ahead.
Steve Shoot, thank you very much for this $20 super chat. Says, was expecting this move, especially when McDaniel decided to go to LA. This was the best move they could make short of firing Bowles, parentheses, which is what really should have happened. Should make those Falcons games spicy for sure. Yeah, I think like for everyone saying that it's a bad hire, not that Steve has been saying this, but that it's a consolation prize. It is a little bit of a consolation prize, but who else was out there that's going to be the best fit and the best hire by this team? People are going to say Nate Chilhas. Nate Chilhas needs to agree to want to be the offensive coordinator of the Bucs. So as far as like who is available, I don't know how much better Tampa Bay could have done. Yeah,
I agree. This is and Matt, before you join us, I kind of liken this to the draft where like you've got your number one target, right? Like let's say you want your number one pass rusher and David Bailey's gone. Ruben Bain is gone, right? And now you're picking number 15. Well, you don't get David Bailey. You don't get Ruben Bain. You have to settle for what the best available guy is. You don't just sit there and say, screw it with the draft, you make a pick and you hope that it works out and you try to make the best pick possible. And I think that's, given the circumstances, that's what Tampa Bay was left to do. And that's what they did. And I think this is the best available hire. I think it is a solid hire given those circumstances. Borderline good. Time will tell. And hopefully it's great. Hopefully everything we're saying here in terms of the glass half full happens, and then the cup runneth over, and maybe this works out like Liam Cohen did in 2024 to some capacity, and if it does, guess what? Then maybe you have your next head coach in house, like we were possibly thinking Liam Cohen could be. Like that's the best case scenario, gentlemen. Is if this works out, and if this offense starts humming and the defense can get better. Todd Bowles isn't going to coach forever, right? He's got 2 more years, 2026, 2027, and then he has a 3rd-year team option, right? And if this works out, best case scenario, and Zac Robinson is close to or the next Liam Cohen, then guess what? maybe the Buccaneers do have their future head coach already on staff with the familiarity with this coaching staff and the offense and the players. The worst case scenario, this doesn't work out. He's nowhere close to Liam Cohen. It's in the realm of Canales and Grizzard in terms of 20, 21, 22 points per game. It's not enough. Bulls can't fix the defense, and guess what? Done. New coaching staff next year. So one way or the other, I think Buccaneer fans are going to be satisfied with this situation for this year, because it's going to lead to something better in 2027, which is either a better football team, and maybe you like what Zac Robinson's doing on offense to the point where he's the head coach in waiting, or it's going to lead to regime change, and then Todd Bowles is gone. And for those of you that want that to happen, you're going to get your wish. One way or the other, I think this is going to work out for the Buccaneers.
That's the nature of the situation they're in, is everybody wants this one thing. And yeah, that's probably they're not in a good spot. And that's where, you think, okay, they didn't get Mike McDaniel. That's who a lot of people wanted. He went out to LA for what is a more stable spot. He's a California guy to begin with, but he's working with Justin Herbert. He is working with Jim Harbaugh, who's only been there for a couple of years and has things going in the right direction, whatever. So that didn't work out for what a lot of Bucs fans wanted. But the nature of the situation, Zac Robinson or not, it could have been insert any name here. Yeah, if this doesn't work, it's starting over next year.
Yeah.
And if it does work, great. Because I don't know. I don't know what the middle ground is. Like, I don't know if I see a reality where, yeah, it works just enough and they just decide to run it back next year after another 9-8 or 8-9 season. I think one way or the other, like you said, Scott.
Yeah.
This season ends with some level of happiness. Just depends on what the context is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right, man.
I think we can't guarantee any type of success with this offense with Zac Robinson, but we at least know. And when I say a sure thing, I don't mean like, oh, it's a sure thing they're going to score 30 points,
right.
But it's a sure thing in terms of you have a coordinator that the training wheels off right away, which
right.
You never had that with Josh Grizzard.
Yep.
And you had Josh Grizzard like production with Atlanta, just with less overall talent. Now let's see what he can do with better talent.
Yeah.
Kings are awful. Thanks for the $1.99. Says when you have a lame duck head coach, C offensive coordinators is all you get. Hey, C's get degrees though, as the saying goes.
Yeah, that's true.
Now we got a D level candidate. Trey Alderson Cloudy here. Thanks for the $4.99. Says I'm really sad we settled for a D tier candidate. I needed some good news at offensive coordinator, because we know the defense is going to be 20 to 30th in the league again.
Yeah, and you know what, Trey Alderson, if that's the case, then Todd Bowles is gone after this year, right? I mean, there's no more excuses. He's got an experienced play caller now, someone with familiarity with Skip Pete, with Kevin Carberry, with Baker Mayfield, right? So I think what this does, this move is exactly what Todd Bowles wanted, but it backs him into a corner. Okay, this is an experienced play caller. This should work, and now it's your job, Todd, to not look over Josh Grizzard's shoulder or Dave Canales' shoulder or Liam Cohen's shoulder and get them ready to call plays with the training wheels in training camp. No, you focus on fixing your defense, and if you can't do it, you're gone. It's that simple, because we're at the point now where it's time to fire the defensive coordinator, right? In 2026, if it doesn't work out, then the defensive coordinator has to go. And that means this is the head coach that has to go, because they're one and the same. So I kind of like this move because it kind of forces Todd Bowles to fix the defense. Because I'll say this, if the offense is wearing the superhero cape again and they're winning games 35 to 31 on a regular basis, it's going to be time for Todd to go. If you can't get this defense right for 3 years in a row, because the last 2 years have been bad, then it's time. And I think at that point in time with the Blazers, if they're faced with another situation where, let's say, again, pie in the sky, ultimate positivity here, little Bucs bright side, if Zac Robinson can be close to what Liam Cohen is in terms of point production and all of that, then he's going to be a candidate for a head coaching position. And I don't think the Glazers are going to make that same mistake in letting another offensive coordinator that is putting points on the board out the door for, an aging defensive-minded head coach. I don't think they're going to make that same mistake again.
Yeah, and to that last point for the last super chat, we know the defense is going to be 20th to 30th. Shoot, I think I'd take them being 20th at this point.
Yeah, right.
What we've seen in the last few years, 27, 28, 29.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the fact that this is – it always is going to be, I think, but I think especially with an experienced offensive coordinator, this is a do-or-die situation, a do-or-die season.
Mm-hmm.
There's no excuses. So
right.
I think that's where – even if you're one of those in the camp where Bowles needs to go, he needs to go, you can at least, if you want to take some comfort in it, like this is a no excuse type of season.
Mm-hmm.
They are one way or the other going to get their answer by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you can at least respect is the Bucs had a plan. They wanted an experienced person.
Yep.
They got an experienced person. So
yep.
You can hang your hat on that. Paul, OG Baker Bro, thank you for the $10 super chat, says Robinson is a massive upgrade to Grizzard, and that's not debatable. The offense, parentheses, especially Baker, will benefit. I feel the onus for winning is being put on the offense when the defense is clearly a bigger problem. There's no doubt about that. I mean,
right.
They could find anyone to call the plays on offense. Until that defense gets fixed, the Bucs aren't going anywhere. They may fall ass backwards into a division title, and that's just based on the division that they're in. But they're not making any noise in the postseason until the defense gets corrected. The offense has to do their part as well. But imagine if their defense played just a little bit better last season, then Josh Grizzard probably still in Tampa, So it kind of it's a little bit of a domino effect. And
I agree,
certainly a lot of this is on the defense.
Well said.
Yeah.
Bart Harley Jarvis, thank you for the $6.99 super chat, says, with Bowles being a lame duck, do we see Robinson as a potential successor? Or are we doing this all again a year from now? Well, the Bucs know nothing better than offensive coordinator searches.
Yeah, that's true. Time will tell. I mean, it's too early, but I mean, we can look at that scenario. We just talked about it for a second here. I mean, that's like the best case scenario. It does work out, and he is the next big thing because he has better quarterback, better receivers, better offensive line to work with. The points are there. The running game, is better. Baker is better than he was last year, maybe closer to what he was in 2024. That's the best case scenario. That is a path. We'll see if that's the path the Bucs wind up being on.
Plus, if Robinson has a repeat year of what Liam Cohen did, then certainly the Glazers are thinking about it. And some of this will kind of be like, how is he at press conferences? Does he have that head coaching feel when he speaks to the media and stuff like that? That all factors in too.
Right.
The Delaney, thanks for the $1.99, says, will they keep Brian McClendon and Kevin Carberry?
I think so. Brian McClendon has done a pretty good job of getting guys.
Why not? Hold on to him if he wants to stay.
Yeah. Kevin Carberry will stay. I've got that pretty good sourced. So,
Trey Sinclair here. Thanks for the $4.99. Says the unit I'm most excited to watch in 2026 is special teams.
I'll tell you what, Danny Smith's a pistol, man. I've done more research on this guy. He doesn't act old. I'll say that. He is.
He goes by Danny.
Yeah.
Who's everything? It's called Danny, you would think it'd be Dan.
Right. It's not Dan or Daniel. It's Danny. Damn it. I mean, this guy's lifting weights, right? With the shirt off.
I could see him walking into his first meeting, backwards hat. Sup, dudes? Ready to get rad on special teams? Something like that.
Yeah. No, I think this is a huge upgrade over T-Mac. I really do. Time will tell, but color me optimistic about special teams. You know what? If special teams are just neutral guys, if they're just not losing games for this team, I'd be happy. They don't have to be special. They just have to be average. Let's just call them average teams. Can we do that? I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Think about how many times.
And then maybe they can up.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I was just saying, maybe then they can go to above average teams and then get to
baby steps.
Great teams, then special teams.
Yeah. Because think about how many times on kick coverage they fell apart and they were putting an already struggling defense in a spot where they were going to have to defend from the 40-yard line.
Yeah.
They need to at least They gave up on kicking. They just kicked it in the end zone because they couldn't figure out how to cover a kick. So if they can get to a point where they don't have to do that, that's already an improvement. So the bar is low.
It is, because Todd Bowles' defense was so bad that it's like when you're giving the team the ball at the 35, right? So then they're 35, 40 yards away from field goal range, maybe even 30 with some kickers.
Easy field goal range.
Yeah. So it just I understand the strategy. It just didn't work. I think Todd Bowles is saying, well, I'd rather start at 35 than the 50, right? Because my team can't cover, but we'll see.
Richie P, thanks for the $20 super chat, says, look, McDaniel, parentheses, Mark Anthony tribute band lead singer.
Okay, yeah, true.
I see it. I see it.
Yeah.
With all things being equal, was always going to choose LA over Tampa. I'm good with Zac.
Yeah. Okay. Just
he was always going to choose. But
anyway. I agree. One thing about Zac, it is ZAC. You got to drop the K, got to drop the H. It's ZAC. So,
it's like forward, Cohen. There was no H in Cohen.
Right.
There's no H in Zac.
Yeah.
The Rams just loved hiring these guys that hate the letter H. They are not fans of Triple H or the letter itself. So.
Exactly. Yep. So hearing now that Zac Robinson's press conference will be on Tuesday. So we will be in Mobile for
Who's
that.
drawing straws? Who's staying behind?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're not going to have the opportunity to ask questions, but we're going to watch the press conference. And I think we're going to trust Greg Allman and Rick Stroud and Jenna Lane and JP Peterson to ask questions that we would. Might even give some of those fine fellows and lady a question or two to ask on our behalf. But we're going to be in Mobile, Alabama. We're turning the page to the draft. We will have plenty of opportunity to interview Zac Robinson throughout the spring and the summer, but we won't be there for the press conference. So
that's a different thing from, we've talked about it, how the offensive coordinator searches in past years have gone into Senior Bowl week. So we've had to stay back at times to write stories about interviews. This time, maybe just staying back once for press conference, but at least we aren't having to write story after story about different offensive coordinator interviews.
Sometimes literally doing it at the stadium instead of watching practice. One of us would have to draw the straw and go in the stands at the stadium and just do a story rather than watch practice. So thankful that this offensive coordinator is done now.
Yeah.
Trey Alderson Cloudier, thanks for the $4.99, says we'll be talking about letting Cohen walk 30 years from now. It does feel like he's the one that got away.
It depends on how well he does. I don't know, 13-4 out of the gates, turning around a 4-13 team. I mean, that's no joke. That's good coaching. I mean, it's not just him. He assembled a really good staff out there. The Buccaneers, think about this. Liam Cohen did in 1 year in Jacksonville as a head coach. What the Buccaneers have only done once in 50 years, which is win 13 games. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what his follow-up act is, right? Sometimes you're a one-hit wonder out of the gate, and it's hard, like even John Gruden, 12-4 out of the gate and won a Super Bowl. It's hard to follow that up, right? Like that's hard to do. It was never as good as it was in 2002 for John Gruden. He had 11-5 season in 2005. They lost to the Redskins, didn't advance after that home playoff game. Matter of fact, didn't win another playoff game after winning the Super Bowl. So we'll see how Liam does in Jacksonville.
D-Buck, thank you for the $5 super chat, says, I agree, Scott Bowles needs to focus on defensive coordinator.
Yeah, he needs to be ultra hands-off with this guy. You got your experienced play caller. Leave him alone. Let him cook. Let him do his thing. Don't mandate we're going to run 30 times in Carolina.
Yeah, if he wants to run 30 times, let it be at his own volition, not because you had your fingerprints all over it.
Yep.
Because then you'll have another fall guy, Todd.
Yep, exactly.
Kings are awful. Thanks for the $1.99. Says Gurus are not ranked bottom of the league for 2 years. All right, Kings are awful. You're typically a negative guy, and I appreciate that. That's fine if you want to super chat us. Give us your options. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. Kings are awful.
I think what he's saying.
Who are your candidates?
I think what he's saying is Todd Bowles is not a defensive guru because.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he's actually piling on Todd Bowles again. I don't think this is related to Zac Robinson.
That's fine. Be part of the solution. Who do you want as defensive coordinator? Who do you want if Todd Bowles was fired? Which I don't disagree. Like I think a lot of us believe that the Bucs should have moved on from Todd Bowles. Who's your defensive coordinator? Who's your offensive coordinator? Be part of the solution. Kings are awful.
Yeah.
Big Guava, thanks for the $4.99, says, I've lived in Jacksonville for almost 20 years. Jags and Bucs fan bases are similar. When things don't go their way, the sky is falling. Solid hire. Go Bucs.
I will say this, all right, and just because we're on the Liam Cohen track here for a second, it's like, when he was like, Duval, like the whole Jacksonville Jaguars fan base was like, what the hell? Like, come on, like you can't even get the Duval chant right. Sorry. Duval, right? Whatever they do, right? The 10-second version. But then, okay, that was like the worst thing he did. Like, didn't win the press conference, but he won a lot of games. So again, we'll see how maybe the Zac Robinson hire doesn't look great now. Maybe it'll look far better in September, October. We'll see. That's the great thing about this. We got to let it play out.
This week or weekend, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of his famous Duval. So
yeah,
that might have been the best thing he did as a coach, is like overcome that.
I know
he overcame that, and everyone liked him. Now, what if Zac Robinson? Because like the Bucs thing is Tampa, then people go Bay. What if he just goes up to the podium and he's like Tampa? Like, is the media supposed to go Bay? Like, how does that work?
I might do that just to avoid him looking foolish. I'm not going to be there on Tuesday.
All stay quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or it's like the Bucs team reporters. Bay. It's like we can't. And like the 2 camera guys in the back.
Yeah.
All right. Michael Moore, thanks for the $10 super chat, says, the big question is, how does Mike view this? Free agency will tell us if they are serious about riding the ship. He will go to a real contender, 2027, top 5 pick loading.
No, he's Mike Evans is either returning to Tampa or he's not. He doesn't want to go to Houston because he has to work with CJ Stroud there. Baker Mayfield helped get this guy here. Baker Mayfield is going to sell Mike on Zac Robinson, right? I think that's a given. When you look at the X receiver in this offense in Atlanta, who was it? It was Drake London, right? Drake London in 2024 had 100 catches for 1,271 yards and 9 touchdowns. Like, Mike would take that. Okay. So let's see, 6'5" receiver in Drake London, 6'5" receiver in Mike Evans, a Hall of Famer. I think Zac Robinson is going to find a way to get him the ball. Even when he was hurt last year, Drake London missed 5 games, only played in 12. He still had 68 catches for 919 yards and 7 touchdowns. So if I'm Mike Evans, I think this hire makes me want to come back for sure. Yes. Baker Mayfield, this offense, I think he respects Todd Bowles as a head coach. And more importantly, the proof is there. I mean, if I'm Zac Robinson, like, I just show him Drake London stats and say, listen, you're better than Drake London. And like, this is what this guy did in my offense. So what can you do?
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't think Baker has to sell him much with what Drake London did.
Right.
And yeah, I think with the, and I don't know, I don't know this for sure, but I just kind of get the feeling, and I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
It's almost with Mike, like it has been with Levante David, where it's like, he's either coming back to the Bucs or he's retiring.
Yeah.
He's not going somewhere else. So yeah, I always see now lately when Mike becomes a free agent, all of these national, aggregators or whatever national sites are like, oh, who's going to land Mike Evans? Like, it's going to be the Bucs, or he's going to retire.
Yeah, we'll remember too, and as John B points out, London is a power slot and a really he's played both, and I think Mike has played both. We've seen Mike in the slot quite a bit. Matter of fact, Liam Cohen put him in the slot quite a bit, and Josh Grizzard did too, to get him some of those releases at a bunch formation. I think we're going to see more of a return of that too.
Yeah.
Malchior, thank you for the $10 super chat, says, this will be an underrated hire. If he had a hand in Bijan Robinson's crazy run game and Drake London's stellar receiving, I'd love to see what he does with Bucky and our receivers.
I agree. Yeah. You go down the line in that Falcons receiving room, it is a healthier Chris Godwin / Emeka Buka, whoever you like for that number 2 spot. Is he better than Darnell Mooney? I think so. And then is Jalen McMillan better than Kadero Hodge? I think so, right? I mean, it's a deeper, better wide receiving core to work with. And let's face it, when Drake London was gone, that offense looked different. It didn't look the same in Atlanta. And yet they still found a way to win down the stretch without Drake London too.
Yeah.
And even if you get, like, obviously you'd love the 2024 version of Bucky Irving, but even if you just get an upgrade on Bucky compared to what he did last season and avoiding a lot of the injury, that'll be gigantic for this offense as well. So I don't think that can be overlooked either.
Yeah.
Well, think about how many times last season it was, and especially late when Bucky wasn't super effective. Like, why aren't they getting the ball to Rashad more? Why aren't they leaning into Sean Tucker?
Yeah.
Zac Robinson was working with Bijan, yes, and he never really had a moment where Bijan was faltering or anything.
Right.
But he also he figured out how to get the ball to Tyler Algier also.
Yes.
As that change of pace, as that guy that can step in and give Bijan a breather. So I think he'll be able to manage a 2 or 3 headed running back room better than we've seen in the past couple of years.
Well said. That's a great point, Bailey. As JB Easy says, who will be the quarterback's coach? There's already been some reports that TJ Yates will be following Zac Robinson from the Falcons. Will he be the quarterback's coach? Possibly, or he could be the pass game coordinator like he was in Atlanta. And then Ken Zampese, who was a Falcons senior assistant, he might be the quarterback's coach, or he might be the pass game coordinator. He's worked with Baker Mayfield before out there in Cleveland. So there's some familiarity there, not just with Zac Robinson, but also with Baker Mayfield. So I think you're going to see both of those guys come to Tampa. One of those guys might be the quarterback's coach. The other might be the pass game coordinator.
Yates of hell and easy peasy on the coaching staff. Mopar Buck, thank you for the $9.99, says Zac Robinson and Danny Smith, or Josh Grizzard and Thomas McGahee with 1,000 dots.
I think it's an upgrade on both. How much remains to be seen, but on paper, I can see why the Bucs made these moves, and let's hope they work for Tampa Bay's sake.
Danny Smith, it definitely feels that way.
Yeah.
Robinson, prove it first, but certainly feels that way.
Yeah.
The Real Maverick, thank you very much for being a Pewter Report YouTube channel member for 5 months now. What a 5 months that has been since you've joined, just based on what the Bucs have done. This hire is best available. His experience matters. I'm not interested in the struggles of a first-time coordinator in-game, unable to make adjustments for long stretches of time. We will have to wait and see. Better than a first-time offensive coordinator.
In theory, yeah. Yeah, in theory, it's exactly right.
Yeah, that's always been the Bucs' plan. Whether we agree with it or not is different, but ultimately it's their decision, and they will be the ones most impacted by it.
That's right. That's right.
SRQ Salt, thank you for the $9.99 super chat. Says best remaining offensive coordinator candidate. Expect a lot of pre-snap motion. Falcons 67.2%, second in the NFL. Falcons offense ranked 6th in the NFL in 2024, fell off in 25, but Penix limited the playbook only in shotgun pistol. Yeah, he's the anti-Gruden. Yeah,
I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, you look at Michael Penix, and I'm not trying to crap on the guy, but he has a 4-8 record as a starter. He completed 59.6% of his passes as a 2-year starter. And granted, we're talking 14 games he's played in over 2 seasons, including 12 starts. But he improved from 58.1% to just 60.1%, right? And he threw 12 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Like, that's a 2-to-1 ratio. That's not bad, but it's not great. Typically, you want that 3-to-1 or sometimes 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. But no offensive coordinator truly wants to work with a rookie quarterback, right? Everybody would love to have a really good, proven, experienced quarterback. And sometimes that can hamstring what you want to do, because you have to look at the quarterback and say, what can he do with this limited experience? What can he do? And then adapt and adjust what you're trying to do around him. Sometimes you got to work with what you have. And I don't think Michael Penix, and I'm telling you, if I'm Atlanta, I'm looking for another quarterback, because I don't trust the guy's knees. And through all of those games he's played in, 14 games of 12 starts, he's won 4. That's not necessarily like a ringing endorsement for this is our franchise guy. Just because you draft a quarterback in the first round, trust me, Tampa Bay has seen it. Trent Dilfer, Jameis Winston, Josh Freeman, etc. Doesn't mean he's going to be the guy. It just means you got a first-round quarterback until he proves that he is the franchise.
SRQ Salt with another super chat. This is of $1.99 with more stats. Thank you very much. Says Falcons 6th in NFL in explosive plays 2024 and 2025.
Yeah.
And we saw like flashes of that with the Bucs last year. Like Ibuka against Seattle was insane. Ibuka against the Eagles was insane. The big Bucky catch and run against the Eagles was great too. But that definitely slowed down the second half of the season. I think that's probably a big reason that played into. Yeah, you're right. Fell off a cliff, and that's a big reason why they lost so many games down the stretch as well. So it doesn't have to be a 40-yard pass down the field. We saw that with Liam Cohen. Just yards after catch, efficiency that way. That's what Tampa Bay needs to get back to.
I agree.
Especially the healthier Chris Godwin Jr. I think that could be a big thing too.
Yeah. And you look at the end of season, Chris Godwin, right? That catch and run, even though he got caught from behind. I was thrilled to see that. I was thrilled to see some real yards after the catch with a big, huge catch and run opportunity. You break a tackle, you slip a tackle, and you're 30 years old, you're doing the best you can with your surgically repaired ankle. That was encouraging for me. Now you have Chris Godwin, who's not having to do rehab the entire offseason. He can rest, right? And just like take some pressure off that. You're not sitting there working your rehab, trying to get back for training camp. Now you can rest and recover. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to see a closer to 1,000 yard season Chris Godwin in the coming year. Whether he gets to 700, 800, I'll take that too.
We talked about it during the season, and it's not exactly the same thing as it's a different injury, and he's older now. But remember the knee injury in 2021. 2022, I think he did have a 1,000-yard season, but he still wasn't really himself. 2023, he came back and looked more like himself, and that's until he got the injury. So I think, or that was 2024, but I think there's a little bit of hope there too, that, hey, he's 2 years removed from this injury now. And he can be a little bit more like the guy he was. And they don't need him to be with Ibuka, with a full season of Jalen McMillan. They don't need him to be the same 1,000-yard receiver that he was in his absolute prime. But I think they could get something closer to that and be pretty thrilled with it.
And Matt, if Godwin and Ibuka are kind of playing that Puka Nacua role in this offense in the slot, and even again using Mike Evans in the slot too, that catch and run opportunity, the yards after catch. Yeah. I mean, Chris Godwin can break tackles. Emeka Ibuka can break tackles. Mike Evans can break tackles. So I want to see more of that. I want to see more of get the ball in the hands of these guys and let them go to town. And I want to see that completion percentage go up for Baker Mayfield. And because guess what? The longer he hangs in the pocket, the more frenetic we see Baker Mayfield and the more happy feet we see, and that's not good. Have him just drop back, get rid of the ball, get the ball in the hands of playmakers, and let's go.
Let's not forget, and a lot of this predates Emeka Ibuka and Jalen McMillan. When the Bucs offense was at its best, even going back to 2020 and 2021, they were at their best when Chris Godwin was the locomotive of that team. He was the one getting the yards after the catch, making the big plays. Obviously, we all know how important Mike Evans is, and he's the wide receiver one. But it was Chris Godwin Jr. that broke the Bucs franchise record for catches in a season. Now, some of them were force-fed based on the Byron Leftwich screens, but he was doing great stuff under Bruce Arians and was doing big things as well once he was able to get healthy. So I'm not going to say
hell on wheels, Matt. Like you're saying with Liam Cohen.
I'm not going to say that. Yeah, exactly. Liam Cohen helped him that a lot. I'm not going to say this season is hanging in the balance for Chris Godwin Jr. because it's certainly not. But he needs to show that he can find some semblance of his vintage self. Because if he's not, if he looks like the same guy from last year, and maybe it's because of injury or whatever the case may be, you're kind of staring down the barrel of potentially this is Mike Evans' last season. Then you're going to have maybe one more year of Chris Godwin Jr. because that's what his contract is. He would have one more season after this next season. Then it's a fully on Jalen McMillan and Emeka Ibuka, or at least then the Bucs are thinking about, okay, who's going to be our next top wide receiver, whether it's free agency or through the draft once again. So a very important year for everybody involved, obviously, but Chris Godwin as well. That's a separate storyline to look forward to and pay attention to. Trey Alderson Cloudier, thanks for the $1.99, says, hope he actually designs pass plays to Bucky.
Yeah, I think he's going to. I mean, remember, Bucky Irving has had some good catch and runs against the Falcons too, right, in those games. And I'm sure Zac Robinson will pay attention to that. just like we hope you guys are going to be paying attention to our remaining shows for this week. We've got a show coming up at 4:00 today. Because we're doing so much Zac Robinson talk right now on the Pewter Report podcast with this emergency podcast, and we're already over an hour. We're still going to continue on for just a few more minutes here. We're going to probably stick with our topic here for the afternoon show. Certainly, we'll be talking about Zac Robinson, and for you folks that are catching this after it's live and you still want to talk some Zac Robinson in the 4:00 hour, we're going to do that. But how many top 5 players did the Bucs have? And more importantly, how do these players fit into Zac Robinson's system? Like that's something I think that Matt and Adam will be talking about at 4:00 today. And then tomorrow, we've got our Pewter Insider podcast. Can the Bucs find pass rush help in Mobile? Lots of great edge rushers. David Bailey will be there. Ruben Bain will be there. Akeem Mesidor will be there from Miami. That gentleman right there, Gabe Akis from Illinois, will be there. We're going to be watching these pass rushers and linebackers and defensive tackles and everybody that Todd Bowles and Jason Light need to fix this defense in Mobile next week. But we're going to be talking about it and previewing it on Friday's Pewter Insider Show. Then on Sunday at 1:00, we're going to have our first mock draft show at 1:00. The mock draft version number 1 will be hitting PewterReport.com. Bucs bolster the defense. We're going to have a lot of defensive players in this mock draft, folks. Make sure you join Josh Capo and I at 1:00 for a special Sunday podcast right before the championship games. And then we're going to be live from Mobile on Monday night once we arrive for our Senior Bowl preview. That is Jacob Rodriguez, who will also be there. Boy, Texas Tech's got a lot of players there. Romello Height, David Bailey, Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle, and J-Rod. It's going to be a Texas Tech type of Senior Bowl, and that's good because the defense was the strength of that team. So that's what's on deck for our Pewter Report podcast coming up, and we'll continue on now with some of these Super Chats.
Yes, another one from Trey Alderson Cloutier. Thank you for the $1.99. Says, will Zac Robinson be our head coach in 2027?
Remains to be seen, but you can't rule it out. Again, if you look at the glass half full or maybe overflowing, if you look at the best case scenario, it works out. And this offense is more similar to what Liam Cohen was able to produce in terms of points, running game, total yards, etc. And and then he becomes a default candidate to replace Todd Bowles in time.
Yeah, I'm curious to see because I can't say I've watched too many interviews of his, so I'm curious to see what his demeanor is like, and like you said earlier, whether that he kind of has that head coaching feel.
Yeah,
because there are guys who just don't have that, and there are guys who you can tell that guy's going to be a head coach. So curious to kind of see what read I can get on that too.
My prediction will be he gets a head coaching interview with the Bucs. So by that, I mean the defense under Bowles just still doesn't work out. Therefore, they move on from Todd Bowles. And the offense is good, not great. It's not Liam Cohen great, where it's like, we have to make him our head coach.
Right.
But they'll hear him out and then make a decision from there. So that's my prediction.
Okay.
Isaiah J., thanks for the $1.99, says, who would be the best hire besides Robinson?
Out of the best candidate, I mean, out of the available candidates, I think he was the best hire, right? I mean, if you have a crystal ball and you can see in a Marvel multiverse, alternate reality, what Nate Schiehlhaas would do, what Grant Udinski would do, because there are two young, up-and-coming offensive minds, right, that are kind of interviewing for head coaching jobs. They're that highly thought of. If you had that crystal ball and you could see, then you hire one of those guys. If it's a rosy forecast, but there's no crystal ball, and so I think out of the available candidates, I think he was the best one.
I think maybe again for like what the directive was from Tampa Bay, they wanted a proven play caller. So from that aspect, he would have been their top option. If we're talking about just in another reality where like they were fine with an unproven play caller, probably Nate Schiehlhaas would maybe be the best option. But again, you're thinking like if this works, if that works, and we can't think that way. Richie P, thanks for the $10 super chat. Speaking of Sheila Haas, says, wouldn't Sheila Haas take head coaching job before coming to Tampa Bay for an offensive coordinator job? Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
A guy that's never called plays, why not call the plays and be the head coach, then call the plays and not be the head coach? Like, either way, you're going to find out whether or not you're a good play caller.
Yeah.
When you're the head coach, you have more room to make decisions and things like that.
I'd say you would think
and
so.
I've heard the paycheck is better too as a head coach.
Yeah, I would say you would think that's the case, and in most cases probably is. But we saw with Mike McDaniel that there was that report that he would take a good offensive coordinator job over a bad head coaching job. And it's a little bit different for him coming off of being a head coach and having just been fired.
Yeah.
But if you're Shieldhouse and you're a young guy who's never called plays before, maybe you do look at, hey, what's best for my development? Maybe you would come to an open offensive coordinator position. And it also depends on whether he's getting offered these head coaching jobs. I know he's getting interviews, but yeah, it's just one of those things that kind of depends on the guy.
Yep.
SRQ Salt, thanks for the $4.99. Says, repeat from yesterday, maybe Robinson can enlighten Bowles on how easily he trashed the Bucs defense for 78 points, converted 3rd and 28 and 4th and 12. Callahan. Better than Callahan.
Better than Callahan, yeah. Well said. I mean, that's absolutely. That's
Sure, that conversation's come up.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if I'm Todd Bowles, I want to know that. Like, help me become a better defensive coordinator. This is a team sport, right? So why not?
They're in the building. Hey, Zach, why is my defense so bad? He's like, how much time do you have, Todd? Well, let me start from. It was Thursday Night Football in Atlanta, 2024.
Right.
A very brief analogy similar to that is one of these rabbit holes I went down recently. Is the idea of urban exploring, where not legal, but people going behind the scenes at theme parks and stuff. And I've seen people in the comments say, okay, the fact that you got into a theme park after hours, like, they should hire you to tell them where their deficiencies are in security.
That's right.
That's kind of the way they're going with Zac Robinson here with Todd Bowles. Hey, where is my defense not living up to where it needs to be? And you can tell him because he's exposed.
Great.
Well
that's
said.
a spectacular analogy. Meets McGee, thanks for the $5 super chat. Says, we all wanted Monken or McDaniel, but we're going back to the system that Baker was successful in. Now he can sequence plays like Liam. I think
what he's saying is, now can he sequence plays like Liam? And
the same idea with the system of Liam Cohen and the Rams, and I'm sure he's going to watch a lot of the 2024 season. And,
I would,
and see what worked out. That would be a good idea.
There is an art to calling plays. There is, like, it is an art form. It's hard to do, whether you're an offense or defensive play caller. It's hard. It's about timing. It's about anticipation. Sometimes it's about guessing right. But it's and of course it's doing homework. It's knowing that you got an educated guess, right? It's not just throwing darts, but it's an art form. Some people can do it better than others, right? And you don't know until you give a guy an opportunity. And I think Zac Robinson, there was some good in Atlanta. It wasn't all bad. Again, the Falcons were never a 3-win team or a 4-win team, and the offense was not in the bottom, or not even the bottom, but it wasn't in the bottom 5, right, in a lot of categories. I think it was an okay offense, and I think he's got more tools, better weapons to work with in Tampa. So let's see what can happen.
We have a $5 super chat from William Spencer. Thank you so much. And then Duncan Disorderly with a $4.99 super chat. Very interesting graphic as well. Says, we need to hire a defensive coordinator. I think it's safe to say Bowles can't be a successful head coach and defensive coordinator at the same time. Well, Rashad White certainly agrees with you. The problem is he's not going to hire a defensive coordinator. He's just not. He's –
especially
we can say
this
it all
year.
we want. Yeah, that too. Exactly, because he's going to go down with the ship, which
he's going to get out on his own terms. Right.
I don't agree, but I can respect his ideology behind it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have a $20 super chat from Corey Robinson. Thank you, Corey. Any relation to Zac Robinson? Please let us know. Says 2 things. We need a dog on defense. We are too nice. Lastly, I'm tired of the musical chairs within the division with coaches. What is? That's true. Dave Canales goes from Tampa to Carolina, and Zac Robinson goes from Atlanta to Tampa. So,
to a lesser extent, Raheem Morris, Tampa, obviously more stops, but to Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
I'm just going to go on record saying, like, I don't necessarily think that Kevin Stefanski is going to light Atlanta on fire. I mean, he might burn it down, actually. I just don't think it's a great hire. I just don't. I think that Atlanta, they would have been better off getting Sean McDermott. And, of course, they jumped the gun and they hired Stefanski. I just don't see the appeal with Stefanski. He had two really good seasons and then like 4 seasons, right, where he just crapped the bed.
I think Baker Mayfield agrees with you.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this was a rush decision from Matt Ryan. I'm not a fan of that move. I don't think this makes the Falcons, the team to watch. No, I don't think that at all. I'm more excited. If I'm the Falcons, I'm more excited about Jeff Ulbrich staying on the defense because I think he had the unit going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Especially with like 55 sacks. So, but Kevin Stefanski, I done enough research on him. I don't think it's a home run hire at all in Atlanta. I might be proven wrong, but I'm going to stick with that opinion until I am.
I just think it's interesting. I think Stefanski's a good coach, but the excuse for him has been like, okay, it was a mistake to get rid of Baker. That's obvious at this point. Yeah. But like, obviously,
but you couldn't make Sean any Watson's other quarterback work.
Disaster.
If you're this,
well, I mean, he got to the playoffs with Joe Flacco. I think that's pretty incredible. He got there with Joe Flacco.
Yeah, but Joe Flacco's also won a Super Bowl too. Like he was.
Yeah, 20 years ago. Are we comparing the Super Bowl winning Joe Flacco to the Joe Flacco of 2 years ago?
I'm just saying he's done it. Just like, for example, with John Gruden. John Gruden could make Brad Johnson work. He could make Brian Griese work. He could make Jeff Garcia work. You give Brad Johnson, or I should say John Gruden, a veteran quarterback, and he can do it. But if you give him a young quarterback to develop, he's not that guy. And so with Kevin Stefanski,
well, that's what I was going to say is like for the excuses of, oh, well, he's never like the quarterback situation has never been that good for him. He's not going to that good of a quarterback situation with
exactly. That's my point. Yeah. Right. And so
that's the point I was trying to make.
Yes. So like good luck developing Michael Penix because you don't have a track record of really developing a quarterback.
Yeah. Joyce and David Huber, thank you for the $1.99, says, I like it. He was second on my list to McDaniels.
Thank you, Joyce and David. Appreciate that.
I'm sure the Bucs do too.
Yeah.
SRQ Salt, thank you for the $4.99, says, for those anti-Zac, who would we want to see as offensive coordinator? Callahan, Shaw, pitcher. Last 2 with no play calling experience. Falcons were 5-2 with Cousins and a full playbook.
I said it earlier when you weren't here, Matt. If they would have hired Brian Callahan, I would have lost my effing mind. Like this podcast would have taken a turn for the worst because I probably would have been like organizing the march on One Buccaneer Place right now. like I don't even understand the appeal of interviewing him. Like he did nothing with the Titans, nothing offensively. I mean, surely he was offensive. I mean, they fired him for good reason after 5 or 6 games last year. It just
very early.
Yeah. But I mean, it credited them for like saying, you suck. Like we're going to get rid of you right now. Rather than like hang on for another season of misery. But why the Bucs would want to interview him? He didn't get the second interview. They actually made the right move.
Right.
Like we're going to stick with Zac Robinson, but we're not even going to give you. Hey, Brian. Yeah, we told you we're going to interview you on Thursday. Yeah, we're going to cancel that. So that was a good move by the Buccaneers, not hiring Brian Callahan.
Gino Sisson, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Says, not sure if this was already asked, but will Robinson use or involve more tight end plays?
Josh Grizzard certainly didn't. That's for sure. 2 touchdowns from the tight ends, and they came like at the last couple of games of the season.
Yeah.
Cohen certainly did. And you look at what the Rams do, right? I mean, with their tight end room out there, Colby Parkinson's kind of been that guy. Higbee has been injured, right? But I mean, he was when healthy, he's a factor. I'd like to see more of that. I don't necessarily want it to be Cade Otton, if I'm being honest. I'd like to see more Devin Culp. Sign me up for Kenyon Sadiq if he's the best player available at 15, the Oregon tight end. Please, it's a massive upgrade at tight end, massive over what the Bucs have. And you have to look at Sadiq and say, well, where is he going to be in the pecking order? Okay, well, you're not just drafting him in the first round for this year. You'll have a 5th-year option with him as well. So hypothetically, if he is the pick, then you've got a tremendous option in your passing game when you're in 12 personnel, right? When you're in 11, when you're in 13, he's always going to be on the field. And you have all these wide receivers. Mike's not going to be here probably past this season if he returns. Chris Godwin, I don't see them extending his deal. So this is his second year out of 3. So within 2 years, he's going to be gone. Then you're going to be left with, and it's not the end of the world, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan, Tez Johnson. But if you throw Kenyon Sadiq in there for this year and in the future, like, look out. This offense is quite potent for years
even
to
that
come.
scenario, like down the line, by the time you would say that Mike and Chris are gone, Emeka's in his, I think, it would be his 3rd year.
Yeah.
Or no, I think it might be by then it would be, his 3rd year.
3rd year, yeah.
And he has the 5th year option, but McMillan doesn't have that option for the 5th year. So
Correct.
He's nearing the end of his contract. So you're starting to kind of roll over and they might extend those guys, but you're quickly relieving yourself in a position where you don't have your top options if you aren't starting to plan ahead right now.
And I'm telling you, this guy is a mismatch. You put a linebacker on him, he's going to blow past him. He is big, strong, physical. Not the tallest or biggest guy. He's like 6'3", 245, but he's jacked. I mean, he is a powerful player, good blocker, he can break tackles. So you want to match him up with a 6 foot, 200-pound safety. That's a mismatch, right? Don't put a nickel corner on him. I mean, he will beat him up. So I'm just saying, like, everybody's thinking defense, and trust me, I am too. But he is the game changer. If he's there at 15 and it's the choice between him or maybe the 3rd or 4th edge rusher, you have to kind of weigh that too. And so we'll see. Another super chat here about a tight end, Matt.
Yeah, SRQ Salt, thank you for the $1.99, says, more tight end, ? Maybe Pitts and Algier come with Zac Robinson.
Sign me up for Tyler Algier. I've been a fan of his since his BYU days. I think he's a hammer that this team needs to complement Bucky Irving, and especially in short yardage and goal line situations. He can catch the ball. He can pass protect. I think he would be a phenomenal replacement for Rachaad White.
If I'm not mistaken, he was a 1,000-yard rusher as a rookie, right? Before they drafted
I believe
Bijan.
so.
And obviously you're going to draft Bijan when you're given the chance. But, I think he was a 1,000-yard rusher as a rookie. So
yeah, he was. And actually, he got that 1,000 yards against the Buccaneers in Tom Brady's last game, right? When the Falcons came back to beat the Buccaneers and give Brady a losing season, 8-9 rather than 9-8. The Bucs had a halftime lead in that game, and Bulls pulled all the starters because they had already clinched the division. But you're right. He ran for 210 yards, 210 attempts, 1,035 yards, and 3 touchdowns as a rookie. Last year, in kind of a complementary role to Bijan Robinson, he had 514 yards, 8 touchdowns, right? And he's been a good receiver. I mean, he's had some productive seasons as a receiver. Doesn't get featured the way Bijan Robinson, can, but he's averaged 8.5 yards per catch. That's not bad coming out of the backfield. And let's face it, when the Falcons were going to throw the ball to a back, it was going to be Bijan because he's the guy that can get you 50 yards rather than 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder with Pitts, too. I agree with everything said about Algier. I think he's a perfect fit for this team, what they need specifically at running back. Pitts is more of an interesting one because he's a buck killer at this point, as we've learned, but does nothing against everybody else. If Robinson wants him, I don't think the Bucs are going to necessarily say no. Who knows? Why not just bring Kyle Trask back while you're at it? He's got familiarity.
It just depends on the price tag, right? On what Pitts would be versus what else is out there, But, I'm with you. And listen, the story would be, boy, Kyle Pitts is lighting it up in training camp.
Yeah, it really would be, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And then he'd be the ultimate tease because we'd be propping him up and hyping him up in training camp, and then he just does nothing during the regular season.
It's the gloves.
Right? Yeah.
Corey Robinson, thank you for this $10 super chat. Says, if we have a losing season this year, total reset, starting with Jason, Light, Bowles, and offensive line. I don't know about offensive line. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe one change, but Bowles for sure.
Yeah, I don't think the Blazers have the stomach to replace Jason Light and Todd Bowles in the same season. Again, they've done that twice, and where they've replaced the GM and the coach It has not worked out at all. They got rid of Bruce Allen and John Gruden, and they brought in Mark Dominic and Raheem Morris. They had a 3-13 season after winning 9 games the year before. Then they did that again when they fired Mark Dominic and Greg Schiano after a 4-win season in Schiano's final season. And they brought in Jason Light and Lovie Smith, and they won 2 games the next year. They went from 4 wins to 2. So I don't think that's the recipe for success. I think they would stagger it. I think that you would fire Bowles, and then you kind of put Jason Light on the hot seat and say, we need better players because this, either that or find a better coach, right? It would put Jason on the hot seat a little bit if that were to happen, but I don't think they would fire both at the same time.
Gino Sisson, thank you for this $10 super chat. Says, off topic here, if Matt Nagy was hired as one of the offensive coach on the offensive staff, how would you guys compose yourself from not laughing during press conference?
Oh God! Oh man!
It is a
Shout
tough
out Mark
feeling.
Cook.
Yeah, R.I.P. Mark. Shout out to him. It is a tough feeling when you're in a press conference and like you either get the giggles or there was one time this season I had to sneeze while Baker was up at the podium.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, please don't look at me, Baker, because I'm probably like trying to hold back a sneeze as Baker's like, yeah, like we got to beat all 3 phases of the defense, like saying something important and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think after a while you'd get used to it. But early stages, it would definitely bring some chuckles in the room.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I've had to hold in a sneeze before. It's like awkward. Yeah, I mean, if it was Matt Nagy, I would be hearing Mark Cook in the back of my mind. Scott, ask Matt Nagy a question. I would hear that.
Head coach of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and listen, when I get the
I
giggles,
have asthma. Yeah, right. that's what I was going to say. I have asthma.
When I get the giggles, like it's over. I have a hard time controlling myself. I got kicked out of class a couple times back in like first time in elementary school.
I don't even remember what it was, but when we were at the NFL annual meeting last year, I remember witnessing you getting the giggles. I don't even remember what it was over, but I remember when we were at the house, something got you.
Yeah,
and we all lost all.
It's like a freight train; it can't be stopped. Yeah. When I start laughing, and then I start coughing because I can't breathe. So,
all right.
I don't know if this is true or not. I'm going to take Low Country Pirates' word for it. Ian Rappaport said Bowles called Zach at the airport and said, "Don't leave town." He said Baker wanted Zach. Okay, it's a great story. Listen, they obviously in the night wanted Zac Robinson. And they canceled their interview with Brian Callahan, and they made a move on this after his second interview. It makes sense that they would want to do that. Thank God they didn't bring Brian Callahan in for a second interview. I didn't see the logic in that at all. I would have preferred Dan Pitcher, the sight-in scene, rather than Brian Callahan. But again, folks, we will wait and see. I think this has the possibility of being a good hire. I think this was the best hire out of the available candidates. I think we've heard from Matt and Bailey. They're probably in agreement with what I just said there. This is not a surprise. We've kind of forecasted this for the last couple of days. You've been watching and reading our stories on PewterReport.com. We've been featuring Zac Robinson in those pictures. We've kind of been given the wink and the nod that, out of the available candidates, they're probably whether it's choosing Zac Robinson or settling for Zac Robinson, however you want to frame it in your own mind, that's what happened,
02RR, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Says Baker and Zach teaming up to sweep the Falcons. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And as Michael says here, so Baker's made the past 3 OC hires. Well, and Baker's also turned a couple of those OC hires into head coaches too. Mm-hmm. So he does have a little bit of power here, the power to get guys to come to Tampa and pick the offensive coordinators. He also is a bit of a kingmaker too. So
when you have when you give your franchise quarterback, that's typically how it's going to work. I mean, he didn't. I mean, when they hired Canales, he wasn't here yet, right? So
correct.
Ever since he took the job by storm, basically in 2023, you're going to get the coordinator that's going to work best for your quarterback.
Yep. Well, folks, really appreciate the turnout today. We know some of you are at work, and if you're not, well, I hope you find a job soon. But or maybe you're retired. Maybe you're just like you've already made enough money and you're good. But either way, we greatly appreciate all of you who have tuned in. This is a huge turnout for an emergency podcast during the day, and our longest emergency podcast we've ever done, because we had some great comments, great questions, great super chats, great participation, great all the way around. Let's see if Zac Robinson can be great to live up to you guys, the Pewter people, because you're great. And we've got a lot of great content coming up. One quick little reminder, we have this afternoon's podcast at 4 o'clock. Again, we'll be talking about the Zac Robinson hire, but maybe how these offensive players would kind of fit in the system and how many top 5 players at each position do the Buccaneers have when compared to the league. We know Tristan Wirfs is one of those guys. We know Zac Robinson is a fan of Tristan Wirfs. How could you not be, right? Well, we're going to talk more about that at 4 o'clock today. And again, the Zac Robinson press conference will probably be on Tuesday. So we'll probably do a couple of podcasts from Mobile. One doing an emergency podcast to chime in on our thoughts on the Robinson press conference. And then we'll have a kind of a standalone Senior Bowl press conference, because the Buccaneers are going to be looking for talent on the defensive side of the ball. And you're going to get your first glimpse at that when Matt Matera and I talk about that tomorrow at 1:30. Can the Bucs find pass rush help in Mobile? Please say yes. And then on Sunday at 1 o'clock, whoop, that's not it. There we go. Sunday, 1 o'clock, Bucs Bolster the Defense, our mock draft #1 show with Josh Capo and I. Will be having 5 of these presented by Jorgensen Law, which will be exciting. And this is going to be Sunday at 1 o'clock, right before the championship game. So join us live here on Pewter Report TV for that show. Josh Capo and myself will be breaking down our first Pewter Report Bucs mock draft of the season, which will be live on PewterReport.com on Sunday at 1 o'clock. Then on Monday, we'll be traveling to Mobile, where we'll have a Senior Bowl preview and get everybody's thoughts on who the favorite players are that we're keeping an eye on and who the Bucs should be scouting. This team has drafted a tremendous amount of talent from the Senior Bowl, including guys like Yaya Diaby, Servassier Dennis, Cody Mauch, some starters on this team. Payne Durham was another one who caught our eye at the Senior Bowl. And let's hope they can find some stars rather than just starters in Mobile. That would be great. This team could use some more Pro Bowl caliber players. Tyke Smith was one of those guys at the Pro Bowl as well. I'm sorry, at the Senior Bowl. Jacob Parrish was also a Senior Bowl guy as well, right? Bailey,
Tez Johnson last year.
Who?
Tez Johnson last year as well.
Tez Johnson. That's right. Tez Johnson. Really hard to cover. He really stood out at the Senior Bowl. So stay tuned to PewterReport.com all weekend long and all through next week. We'll have more on the Zac Robinson hire. We'll have more on the coaching hires. Again, we're expecting TJ Yates to join the Bucs coaching staff. He was the pass game coordinator, as well as Ken Zampese. He was the quarterbacks coach with Cleveland back in the day with Baker Mayfield, and was a senior assistant on the offensive side under Zac Robinson in Atlanta. So any parting words, gentlemen?
Bailey, the floor is yours.
Basically, just to recap a lot of what we've said, I think this good hire, maybe not a great hire, best available hire, as you made the draft analogy, and I think there's a path to this definitely working, and we'll see. I'm excited to move on to the draft phase, the free agency phase of the offseason, because for as much pressure as everyone is rightfully putting on Todd Bowles to fix the defense, there's some holes on this defensive roster at linebacker, at outside linebacker, maybe at cornerback as well. So I'm excited to see how they fill those holes, and excited to get to Mobile next week.
Yep. Real quick, guys, if you can, hit the like button. Hit the like button. Leave a comment, especially after the video is done, on our comments page. When you do those two things, you give us likes and comments on all of our videos, you have more of a chance of going viral and getting in front of even more Bucs fans. So please just hit the like button. It's quick, easy, it's free, it's easy to do, and that would be absolutely fantastic. Also, too, we have a request here from Jay Retcher. Can we get Bailey a new hat?
Not happening.
You're charging on, Bailey, with that.
Yeah,
with that Knights hat.
You mentioned Lee Hunter, defensive tackle from Texas Tech, who will be at Senior Bowl, built by UCF. He was there for 3 years. So
one of my favorite players. He may or may not be in our first mock draft, Bailey. We'll have to see.
Would love it.
There you go. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I'll just say real quick, it's there could have been worse options for the Bucs at offensive coordinator. Ultimately, it's going to be a little bit of a coin flip for just the whole team this season, but it's a box they need to check, and that they did. So if you're not already doing so, please make sure you follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. So please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video how you feel about the hiring of Zac Robinson to be the Bucs' next offensive coordinator. That's it for this version of the episode. We'll have one later this afternoon. So for Bailey Adams, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you later for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.